Hi everyone, so here we are with video number 7 now, my entire DVD collection in alphabetical order, over 4,000 titles. So yeah, I'm doing it in a series of videos. If you're new here, I have set up a playlist on my channel as well, so you can follow along that way. But yeah, here we go. Guns of the Magnificent Seven. Robert Mitchum and Randolph Scott in Gung Ho. A different type of movie. This is Michael Keaton in Ron Howard's Gung Ho. 60s musical Guys and Dolls with Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. This is directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. And I've talked about this one before on my channel. Really good film from director John Frankenheimer, with a great cast here of Burt Lancaster, Gene Hackman and Deborah Kerr in The Gypsy Moths. This is Lasse Hallström's English language remake of Hachi, A Dog's Story with Richard Gere. Coen Brothers movie Hail Caesar. Ryan Gosling, Anthony Mackie in Half Nelson. And classic John Carpenter in Halloween. Halloween 2, Halloween 3. And John Irvin's fairly low-budget Vietnam movie Hamburger Hill. Kenneth Branagh's sprawling version of Hamlet. A DVD here of the trailers of the Hammer film collection. Pretty good Hammer movie this. This is Eric Porter in Hands of the Ripper. And Clint Eastwood in the western Hang 'em High. Scripted by Nora Ephron and directed by Diane Keaton. And she also stars with Meg Ryan in Hanging Up. And a young Saoirse Ronan in Joe Wright's action-packed Hannah. Great Woody Allen movie this, with an Oscar-winning performance for Michael Caine, Hannah and Her Sisters. A movie that I have quite a bit of fondness for. This is Hannibal Brooks, directed by Michael Winner, yes, and starring Oliver Reed and Michael J. Pollard. A wartime movie about transporting an elephant across the Austrian Alps. Harrison Ford and Leslie Ann Down in Hanover Street. A Dutch movie here for Disney. This is Hans Brinker or The Silver Skates. And classic Danny Kaye in Hans Christian Andersen. From director Todd Solondz, Philip Seymour Hoffman in Happiness. And from Werner Herzog, his documentary Happy People. From director Zhang Yimou, this is Happy Times. And early career Paul Thomas Anderson, this is Hard Eight. Quite a fun one this, Christian Slater and Morgan Freeman battling it out in torrential rain, in Hard Rain. And Rick Springfield in Hard to Hold. Classic reggae movie from Perry Hensel, starring Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come. And Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson in Harley Davidson and The Marlboro Man. Ruth Gordon in cult classic Harold and Maude. And Michael Caine in a pretty good low-key thriller this, Harry Brown. The Harry Potter collection. And Bruce Willis, Colin Farrell in Heart's War. Elvis in Harum Scarum. As cheesy as all these are, I do enjoy Elvis movies. Directed by Sidney Pollack. This is Robert Redford and Lena Olin in Havana. Actually, yeah, this is a bit of TV, but John Hart and Lon Chaney Jr. in Hawkeye and The Last of the Mohicans. Steven Soderbergh's action thriller Haywire. And comedy with Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth Perkins in He Said, She Said. Fun one this, directed by Ron Underwood, who went on to do Tremors, but this is Heart and Souls, Robert Downey Jr., Elizabeth Shue, Charles Grodin, really good cast. Sigourney Weaver, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Gene Hackman in Heartbreakers. Cult classic from director Michael Lehman, this is Christian Slater and Winona Ryder in Heathers. Love this movie, directed by John Huston and Robert Mitchum and Deborah Kerr, Heaven Knows Mr. Allison. Really good early film from Peter Jackson, this one. Heavenly Creatures with Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky. And directed by the Bolting brothers, Peter Sellers in Heavens Above. directed by Phil Joannou, who also did State of Grace. This is Alec Baldwin in Heaven's Prisoners. And directed by William Wyler. This is Olivia de Havilland and Montgomery Clift, the classic The Heiress. Great movie this, directed by John Boorman. Two enemies trapped on a deserted island and forced to get along. Lee Marvin and Toshiro Mifune in Hell in the Pacific. Set in Manchester, this is a thriller for Hammer Films, starring Stanley Baker. Hell is a City. And Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy, as well as his sequel, Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Pinhead in Clive Barker's classic Hellraiser. And haven't actually watched this yet. I don't think it's supposed to be too good, but written and directed by Larry Bishop and lauded by Quentin Tarantino. This is Hellride. Emma Stone, Viola Davis, Jessica Chastain and Bryce Dallas Howard in The Help. And from director Philip Kaufman, this is a look at the writer Henry James's relationship with the poet Anais Nin in Henry and June. Kenneth Branagh really came to fame in this one, Henry V. Tom Selleck and Paulina Poroskova in Her Alibi. Yes, I've got a Lindsay Lohan film, and it's Herbie Fully Loaded. And going back to some classic Herbie films, Herbie Goes Bananas, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, and Herbie Rides Again. Disney's Hercules wasn't very keen on this style of animation. Hercules, Samson and Ulysses. Visually stunning, this is Zhang Yimou's The Hero with Jet Li. I picked this one up recently. This is Henry Winkler and Sally Field in Heroes. Viggo Mortensen in Hidalgo, directed by Joe Johnston, who also did The Rocketeer. A really good movie from Ken Loach with a atypically starry cast. This is Hidden Agenda with Brian Cox and Frances McDormand. I enjoyed this one a lot. This is Hidden Figures, Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Janelle Monáe and Kevin Costner. Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman in High Crimes. And Clint Eastwood Western, High Plains Drifter. From Boys in the Hood director John Singleton, this is Higher Learning with Jennifer Connelly, Omar Epps and Ice Cube. There Can Be Only One, but that didn't stop them making a few sequels. Highlander. Really great movie this from Sidney Lumet. This is Sean Connery in The Hill. And then here we have the 2006 version of The Hills Have Eyes. Clive Owen here in a series of films that were done to promote BMW. Clive Owen playing a getaway driver. Each of these films is directed by really top directors that include the likes of Tony Scott, Ang Lee and John Woo, as well as John Frankenheimer. Nicholas Heitner's adaptation of Alan Bennett's play, The History Boys. Rutger Hauer and C. Thomas Howell in the classic The Hitcher from 1986. And not nearly as good, this is Sean Bean in the remake. Martin Freeman and Sam Rockwell in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Hitman, Agent 47. Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson in The Hitman's Bodyguard. Rutger Hauer in Hobo with a Shotgun. Here's a movie you can get on Blu-ray via Indicator. This is Peter Sellers in Hoffman. Cannon movie directed by John Frankenheimer. This is Michael Caine and Anthony Andrews in The Holcroft Covenant. And from director Frank Capra, we've got Frank Sinatra in A Hole in the Head. Kevin Bacon, Elizabeth Shue in Hollow Man, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Interesting Hollywood drama this, involving George Reeves, who played Superman in the 50s, being found dead, and Adrian Brody coming in to investigate. Ben Affleck actually plays George Reeves in this. Eddie Murphy in Holy Man. And Paul Newman in Martin Ritt's Hombre. Billy Bob Thornton in Homegrown, directed by Stephen Gyllenhaal. A nice one this. This is Honey Dripper, directed by John Sayles. And that's Gary Clark Jr. there, playing a bluesman in this. Lovely wartime movie this from John Borman, Hope and Glory. And Sandra Bullock, Harry Connick Jr., Hope Floats. Classic Hammer, we've got Christopher Lee in The Horror of Dracula. And still with Hammer, we've got Ralph Bates in The Horror of Frankenstein. Compilation movie this for Hammer, The Horror of Hammer. And Bong Joon-ho's excellent The Host. And maybe not so good, Saoirse Ronan in The Host, adapted from the Stephenie Meyer book, directed by Andrew Niccol. Scott Cooper directs Hostiles with Christian Bale and Rosamund Pike. And directed by Tony Richardson, who also did Charge of the Light Brigade in 1968. This is The Hotel New Hampshire with Nastasia Kinski, Jodie Foster, Rob Lowe and Beau Bridges. Strong performance from Don Cheadle in Hotel Rwanda. And a fun Hammer production of The Hound of the Baskervilles with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. I still prefer the Basil Rathbone ones though. And yeah, not bad. This is Ian Richardson in The Hound of the Baskervilles. Nicole Kidman winning the Oscar by a nose in The Hours. Fun 80s comedy horror with William Catt and George Wendt from Cheers. This is House, directed by Steve Miner. Walter Matthau and Glenda Jackson pairing up as they did a few times. This one in House Calls. Another visually beautiful film from Zhang Yimou, who also did The Hero. This is House of Flying Daggers. Great movie written and directed by David Mamet. This is Joe Mantegna and Lindsay Krause in House of Games. And some very questionable Italian accents in this Ridley Scott movie, House of Gucci. From director Terence Davis and based on a novel written by Edith Wharton, who also did The Age of Innocence. This is The House of Mirth. And Jennifer Connelly and Ben Kingsley in psychological drama House of Sand and Fog. Some Fox film noir, Edward G. Robinson and Susan Hayward in House of Strangers. And another one, Richard Basehart in House on Telegraph Hill. From director Lars von Trier, this is Matt Dillon in serial killer movie The House That Jack Built. And from the writer of With Nail and I, this is Bruce Robinson's How to Get Ahead in Advertising with Richard E. Grant. Peter O'Toole and Audrey Hepburn in How to Steal a Million. Annette Funicello in How to Stuff a Wild Bikini, featuring in guest performances Buster Keaton and Joel McRae. Really good musical this from Bob Fosse. This is Robert Morse in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Great animation and story in this one, How to Train Your Dragon. A wonderful Merchant Ivory production this with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, Howard's End. James Franco as the writer and poet Allen Ginsberg in Howl. And from Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki's Howl's Moving Castle. Joe Dante's 1981 classic, The Howling. And Howling 2, the perhaps not so good follow-up. This one directed by Philip Morra, who also did Mad Dog Morgan. But wait till you get to Howling 3. That's the really crazy one. Bruce Willis in Hudson Hawk. You wouldn't think this was written by Peaky Blinders' Stephen Knight, but yes, The 100-Foot Journey with Helen Mirren, directed by Lasse Hallström. Pretty incredible performance from Michael Fassbender in Steve McQueen's Hunger. And The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. I've managed to get all the other Hunger Games movies on Blu-ray. Great movie this from Thomas Vinterberg with a superb performance from Mads Mikkelsen, The Hunt. And Sean Connery sails into history, and yes, he is a Russian in The Hunt for Red October. Okay, there we are. So that's another episode over with. So yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on any of those movies. Please stick with me and join me for the rest of my DVD collection. As I say, there is a playlist that I've put on my channel so that you can follow along that way as well, just in case you miss any episodes. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much for joining me on this one. Bye.